Coming to you from the studios of WTAP Plus, it's Mental Health Mondays with Andrew Noll.
Hey everyone, and welcome in to another week of Mental Health Monday. I'm Andrew Noll. This week is Random Acts of Kindness Week, which is a week when you've got to be a little bit nicer to everyone than you are normally. You know, maybe that nice compliment to someone, holding open the door for someone that you may not know, but it's Random Acts of Kindness Week. So we want to talk about how that impacts your mental health and how it positively, can maybe make someone's day or week by doing something nice for them. So joining me today in studio is none other than Rachael Scheiding from Westbrook Health Services. Rachel, thank you so much for sitting down with me and joining us again.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me again.
Of course. So, Random Acts of Kindness Week, it's time for some people out there to really get down to being nice this week. So, absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit more about what this week entails and how it can positively impact your mental health?
Yeah, so Random Acts of Kindness Week is from the 14th to the 20th, and it's the idea of being intentionally kind, doing kind things for yourself, for others, and for your community that maybe you normally wouldn't. And so the idea is that if you are kind of intentionally being kind, looking for ways that you can do kind things, that is going to start training your brain into a habit of doing that even after this week is over. So, a lot of us are kind of kind automatically, right? We use our good manners.
Right. And,
we try to smile at people when we pass them in the street and things like that. So this is a call to be even more kind than normal, more than the automatic things that you already do. And that can affect mental health in a big way. So people might not realize it, but being kind, it does a lot of things in the brain for us. So it increases dopamine, which you've probably heard of dopamine,
yes.
Right? It's one of those feel-good chemicals in the brain. It makes you feel pleasure. It serves as a natural reward that reinforces behavior. So when you do something that releases dopamine, that is a reward to your brain to try to get you to do it again.
Right.
So being kind releases dopamine. And the more dopamine that we have, it improves our ability to learn, our motivation. It improves kidney function, sleep, memory, focus, mood, attention, digestion, blood flow, pain processing, heart rate, how our body controls feeling nausea, and movement. So a lot of things are impacted by dopamine. So it's great to have more of that. Being kind also increases oxytocin, which you've probably heard of as well.
Yep.
And that is the chemical that makes us feel connected and attached to other people. So, the more oxytocin you have, the more that you feel like you can trust others, that you're a part of your community or your family, the more bonded you might feel with your partner or your children. And it's just kind of that warm, fuzzy, good feeling, that I think a lot of people want.
Absolutely.
So the more oxytocin, the better as well. Being kind increases your endorphins, so makes you feel less pain and less stress.
Right.
Doesn't change the stressful things in your life, of course, but makes you feel them in a healthier or more helpful way. So depression, stress, anxiety, self-esteem, even help with weight loss is related to endorphins. Being kind decreases cortisol, the stress hormone, right? We've heard of cortisol. We don't want a lot of it. So the less cortisol you have reduces your anxiety and depression, reduces headaches, lowers risks of heart disease, improves memory and concentration, helps with sleep, helps with weight loss. So all the good things there too. Being kind increases nitric oxide in your body, which is a free radical that we create out of nitrates and vitamin C from food. But our body is able to do that better when we are kind.
Right.
Which is pretty surprising. And that improves our blood flow and the oxygenation of our tissue, so helps with health. And being kind also thickens the prefrontal cortex. So the kinder you are, the more capacity for empathy and good decision making you're going to have.
It's interesting to hear all these
things.
Mental health benefits, even just regular health benefits from just your typical being kind to people. So I've got to ask next to, obviously, you should be kind every day. That this week isn't just an exception to you could be mean the rest of the year, but you can't be. You have to be nice this week. But why is it important to dedicate an entire week to something that you would think would be pretty simple for most people to be kind to others, but there is that need to, you know, kind of make it significant, an entire week where random acts of kindness are brought to the forefront.
So I think bringing awareness to the importance of kindness and intentionally being kind, I think, is part of why that week is important. Because again, a lot of us just kind of do things automatically, and sometimes our automatic isn't so kind, right? Sometimes I know my automatic when someone cuts me off in traffic is I'm mad.
Right.
I'm irritated. You know what I mean? And so if I'm trying to be intentionally kind, instead of getting mad, I might say to myself, oh, maybe that person has an emergency they're trying to get to, or maybe they didn't see me and they weren't trying to be a jerk.
Right.
You know, and again, that trains your brain. That starts training your brain to think about things in a way that is more helpful and more healthy. And I think also when we have that concentrated effort of a lot of people are like, this is the week I'm doing kind things, then we can see the effects in a bigger way than usual, right? And so I think that's pretty important for people to see that, like, being intentionally kind, it does make a difference in your relationships and in your community.
Absolutely. So would you be willing to share some, you know, simple, easy, maybe, you know, respectful ways to show those random acts of kindness, whether it is to maybe someone in your household? I know that's not as random, but, you know, maybe you're not as nice to the people that you live with every day. So when they see a random act of kindness, you know, they might be a little shocked, or to that random stranger in the street. But can you give us a couple examples of maybe some easy things for people to do so that, you know, they can get in on the fun and show that they do have a good heart?
Absolutely. So yeah, I think one of the kind of simplest and most neglected is the kindnesses we can do for ourselves.
Right.
So the way that we think about ourselves, giving ourselves grace when we make a mistake instead of being hard on ourselves. Or giving ourselves, you know, time for the things that make us feel good to do. So making time for whatever activities that you enjoy, that you like doing, is a kindness. Even making yourself a dinner that you really love, or you know, door dashing something you really love is a kindness to yourself. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind too. And the kinder you are to yourself, again, your brain gets in that habit, and the kinder you will be to others. So that's a great spillover kind of thing. And then there's lots of little easy things, like on social media, maybe someone that you normally don't interact with is an acquaintance you don't know too well. Maybe you comment on their latest profile picture, like, you look awesome, I love that hairstyle, or, you know, something like that.
Those are great things.
With kids, I know with my kids, trying to give them a lot of grace for being kids and making the mistakes that kids make. Is one way that I try to be kind. Thinking with kids about when can I say yes instead of no, because I think a lot of times we say no because we're tired or we're
for sure
doing something else. And, you know, if we have the chance to say yes to something that's not dangerous and we have the time to do, being able to do that feels good for you and them. Giving your spouse compliments on the things that they do around the house that maybe are expected and maybe they should do, but everybody still likes an attaboy, you know?
Absolutely. It's always appreciated when you do something around the house, even if it's your everyday chore. But, you know, it's not always, sometimes things aren't noticed every day. So when you start not getting those, as you said, attaboy, or like, oh, like the house looks really good after, you know, you swept it up, mopped it, whatever you may have did, vacuumed, and, you know, you stop getting those compliments, maybe it kind of, motivation runs a little bit dry, then maybe you're just kind of feel robotic and you're going through daily motions.
Yeah, if your partner makes dinner almost every night, make sure you're thanking them almost every night. If
make them dinner one night, maybe too.
Give them a night off and say, hey, I want to plan dinner and make dinner tonight, and I'll do all the dishes too. You know, that is an act of kindness for sure. So those kinds of things that maybe we take for granted are important to recognize and say something. And, you know, in your community, if you see someone at the grocery store that's trying to reach something that you can reach and they can't, stop and grab it for them. Or if you're at work and somebody's walking around looking kind of lost, stop and ask them, you know, who are you looking for? Or, can I help you find something? I think those kinds of things that we don't have to do, but it's going to feel good when you do it to you and the other person.
And that kind of leads me into my next question here, because you talk about two specific things you said, community and workplace. Random acts of kindness, obviously, those people, yes, they become your friends over time, people in the community, people at your workplace, but at the end of the day, they start out as strangers. So that random act of kindness coming from someone at work or someone you may just be meeting in your community for the first time really can go a long way. What can you how can you tell us a little bit more maybe about just like what those positive impacts could mean to the workplace for an overall morale boost mentally for everyone there or your community when these random acts of kindness are taken seriously and people actually, go do them?
Yeah, so I think we all have probably experienced what it's like to spend time with someone who's very negative and
pessimistic,
and kind of a downer, and we've all experienced what it's like to spend time with someone who is more positive and maybe brings a good humor or a good kind of energy to the situation, and how that affects us and other people, right? Those attitudes are catching. So being that positive person that knows, when to make a joke and lighten the mood, or, who notices somebody else's work and says something about it. Like maybe it's not your department, but you've noticed someone is really hustling. To say like, hey, I see you, like I see your hustle.
Yeah.
They're going to just glow from that, and they're going to do that for another person probably. So it creates this kind of butterfly effect, right? That I do something nice for someone else, it's going to put them in a little bit better mood, and then they're more likely to do something nice for the next person, and so on. And the same in our community, right? My example of being cut off in traffic, right? I could interpret that as someone being a jerk, and then I might tailgate them the rest of the way, or I might, I never would, but
you might flip
some
the
people
bird
might,
or something. You
some
never
people
know.
might follow them to their destination and get out and have words.
Yeah, road rage a little bit.
That's going to make your day pretty rough, and that's going to make their day worse. Whereas if you can give them grace, and they might never know you did it. They're not going to have any idea that you're being kind to them in your mind, but it's going to change the outcome where you're going to drive more safely, and you're not going to have that negative experience to color your day and, possibly end up with the police called.
Nobody, we do not want the police called on anyone, please.
Absolutely not. So yeah, giving people grace and being kind to them, it ripples out to other people around you.
Right.
There's that idea of paying it forward at drive-thrus, right? Somebody pays for the person behind them, and then they pay for the person behind them, or at toll booths or things like that. That stuff, it ripples out to everyone.
Absolutely. And that's a key word that you're using because it leads me into my next question, the ripple effect. I don't know, maybe if you have a certain example that maybe you've seen in your life, or maybe just have heard from a friend or, family or at your workplace, just experience. Have there been ripple effects from these random acts of kindness that kind of lead to more of a positivity in whether it's the workplace, the community, or at home or something, if you don't mind sharing with us?
For sure. So personally, like I said, trying to give my kids grace at home. When I'm not at home in a bad mood and yelling at them and getting on to them about every little thing, they're more likely to behave well and not yell at me.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then no one's yelling and we're all happy.
Everyone's having a good day at home.
Right? Whereas if I come in hot with an attitude, I'm going to get attitude back 100%, and we're both going to escalate, and it's going to go badly. And on social media, like I said, giving compliments to people that maybe you don't frequently talk to. What I found with that is then I build this kind of social media relationship where the person is then coming and making, giving me compliments about things, or they might reach out to me in direct message and say, hey, it looks like you're going through something, and I may have been through something similar. And, I maybe haven't talked to this person since high school, which was, 23 years ago for me.
Yeah.
But here they are trying to be a support from the place that they're at, and that's a pretty cool thing. So we definitely will see it reciprocated, and that's a ripple effect that I think is important to note. When you're kind to others, they're going to pay that back to you later in most cases.
Definitely. I think what you're saying is nail on the head with everything. But we're going to take a quick break here, Mid-Ohio Valley. But when we come back, we're going to talk about maybe some of the challenges that could go into your random act of kindness. And I don't know. I'm a pretty kind person. I feel like I can't say I'm not going to have challenges being kind this week, but I don't know. There are some challenges for some people to really get that random act of kindness. But like I said, quick break here, and then we will be back to talk about more. Welcome back, Mid-Ohio Valley, to Mental Health Monday. I'm your host, Andrew Noll, and Rachael Scheiding is still here with us, and we're going to continue our conversation as it is Random Acts of Kindness Week. So, Rachael, I want to talk about the other touch of it. You know, it should be pretty easy for people to be kind, be nice to other people, but sometimes it can be a little bit of a struggle for people. You know, other things are going on in life. You're stressed out about things, bills, whatever it may be, and sometimes it can be hard to show those acts of kindness. So can you just talk about some of the challenges people may face and kind of maybe how they can overcome them and maybe work past them to show those random acts of kindness during this week?
Yeah, so of course, if you're going through stressful things, that's going to impact your mood and your patience and your capacity to deal with frustration and all those kinds of things. Or if you have been through experiences, a lot of time people who've been through traumatic experiences build a distrust of other people and the world. And from that, of course, it's hard to be kind when you're not sure if that'll backfire on you later. So understandably, there are certainly challenges. Some people have a short temper, just kind of naturally. It's hard for them to tolerate things that are frustrating to them for very long. So things that can help if you feel like you're in an irritable mood already is to try to do something kind for yourself first, to try to change your mood a little bit. If you tend to have kind of a short temper, one thing that's really helpful, and it's a simple, short thing, is just before you react, take a deep breath. That gives your brain a second.
I think have been one of the things that I have definitely learned. I'm not a super angry person, but I can definitely tend to let things build up and boil up, and deep breaths are definitely one of the things that I feel like help me calm down. So I think that is a very good piece of advice.
Yeah, taking a deep breath to give your brain 1 second before it communicates something to your mouth that maybe you don't want to say.
Yeah, that maybe you regret.
If you're dealing with somebody that you care about or that you love, reminding yourself, I love this person. This person loves me. What they're doing is not to be intentionally frustrating. Trying to come from that perspective of people are not trying to be hurtful to me or trying to be irritating.
Angry,
Right? They're either doing it because they don't realize, or they're just not thinking about that, or something. Or if they are intentionally trying to be hurtful to me, maybe I can check and see if I've done something, to instigate that. But if we have a caring relationship, we should be able to talk about that. So coming to it with kindness is always going to get a better outcome than coming to it with anger. So any of those things that you can do to kind of give yourself a minute before you react is going to be helpful.
Perfect. So that leads me into my next question here. I want to talk about the younger generations, you know, the kids growing up now, obviously different world than we grew up in. So kids are just very different. I feel like we had it a little bit easier. We were able to, you know, be a little more happy-go-lucky with our lives now. A lot of different things going on in the world, and just school shootings, different things like that. It's a little bit more serious in this time. But how can we get kids and the younger generation to get on the bandwagon and the train of Random Acts of Kindness Week? You know, being kind all of the time, not having those temper flare-ups. I know it's a little bit easier to tell an adult to just breathe. Telling a 7-year-old, hey, take a deep breath, that gets them to a little bit louder than they probably just were. So, because I've tried that one and it does not work, Mid-Ohio Valley. So don't try it at home.
Well, I'll tell you a trick with kids. The deep breathing does work for them, but you can't say, let's take some deep breaths with every kid, especially the little ones.
Maybe.
Well, you have to do something different. So you can say, let's pretend we're blowing the biggest bubblegum bubble you can think of.
That's a good one.
Or let's pretend we're blowing bubbles outside. Or one that I like to do with kids that can help them when they're irritable or angry is tense your body up like you're an uncooked piece of spaghetti, and now you're a cooked piece of spaghetti, and go totally loose. And they will find that kind of fun, and it also helps them reset that irritability and that frustration. So, but to get kids on board, I think doing it with them, setting that example, because kids watch adults. They watch their grown-ups, and they do what you do, not what you say, right? So if I'm telling my kids not to yell, but I'm yelling, they're going to yell because I'm doing it. So yeah, setting the example, doing kind things with them. Ask them what they think would be good in the community. Like you could paint rocks with your kids and go place them in fun places and say, I wonder who will find this rock, and their day will be made, or, things like that, that you can do together and be excited about. Things that are kind of fun for kids to do. When it comes to like older kids, teenagers, I think they tend to be very expressive with art and music.
Right.
So if there's an opportunity for them to like paint a mural somewhere, or if there's an opportunity for them to write music or lyrics or poetry that they maybe want to share in social media or share with family members or something like that, those are kindnesses that they might be interested in. And I think you can explain this stuff to kids, of how it's helpful, how will it help you, and how will it help everyone else. I think there's ways that they can kind of get that, because they've all dealt with mean kids and nice kids, and they know how that affects them and others. So I think just talking about it with them is helpful too.
Absolutely. I think that's some really great advice on how to get the younger generation to follow along with the Random Acts of Kindness Week. So I want to turn our attention to, we've kind of covered every age group, that kind of category of how for this week they can be getting involved in Random Acts of Kindness Week. But how do we kind of take this 1 week and make it a year-round thing? How can that culture, become a lifestyle almost, and become something that you do on a daily basis rather than just for a few days because the calendar says to online?
Sure. Yeah, so if you participate in the Random Acts of Kindness Week, try to notice any changes that has for you. If it changes your mood, if it changes your thinking, if it changes the interactions you have with other people. And if you notice that those things are better, maybe this is something you want to do all the time, to reap those benefits all the time. Notice changes in your health, in your sleep, in your, things that you're working towards. Are your goals easier to reach when you're kind to yourself versus when you're beating yourself up? There's so many things that will improve in your life if you're being kind to yourself and others. And if you kind of make a note of that, the evidence will support continuing to be intentionally kind.
Absolutely. So it's something that you've been talking about and you've been mentioning throughout this episode, social media. It's what I kind of want to turn to now. It's one of the last questions, but how does social media kind of promote and help highlight Random Acts of Kindness?
Well, so I do want to say that there's a website for this movement.
Oh, really?
randomactsofkindness.org.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
So you can go there and check out kind of their mission.
Well,
and
that's awesome.
They have a little character named Norm, for making kindness the norm.
I like that
and
a lot,
some videos
actually.
and
Took me a
stuff.
second.
It's good for kids too.
Right.
There's some good kind of cartoon delivery of things. But so that's one thing that can help, and then sharing this on social media. So that other people are aware. Not everyone has heard of this week.
Right, yeah.
So sharing that on social media, not necessarily sharing every act of kindness you do, because we're not doing this to get accolades and praise, but maybe sharing that you're participating. I'm going out of my way to be kind today. What are you doing today to be extra kind?
Yeah.
Social media, one of the benefits of it is that info spreads like wildfire, whether it's or wrong, right? So the more people that are kind of posting about this and being like, look at this beautiful community garden we planted, or, look at this nursing home resident that I hung out with and played checkers or read to or whatever.
Right.
More people will see that and be like, hey, maybe I should do something like that.
Right. And I think it's important that you said it and that I'll say it too. We aren't talking about this looking for accolades, achievements. No, you weren't necessarily talking about us in that scenario, but we're talking about this because it's important, and we want to, our goal with this podcast, I think, is to bring important topics that help people with their mental health and also give them maybe not solutions, but, resources and things that are available to help them. And this is a week that, with your mental health, it can be something that, maybe you didn't have the best start to the year. Your New Year's resolution isn't going too well. We had talked about that previously in one of our first episodes, but maybe this is something that you have a really good week during Random Act of Kindness Week, and it kind of sends you on that upward trend for the rest of the year. So
sure.
I don't know. I'm definitely excited for this week and to continue forward and definitely getting those random acts of kindness out of my body all week and hopefully projecting it and continuing with it forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think our country and our world in general would be better if there was more love and less hate. And that's an old idea that has become cliche, but it's true. You know, when we're nice to each other, we look out for each other and we keep each other's interests in mind.
Right.
We all have a better time.
Absolutely. And so it makes me want to ask you this. It's not the last question. I guess I'll ask you. My last question always is if you have anything else to share. But second to last question here. If there was like one act of kindness that maybe you could inspire worldwide that people, you know, could take on and move forward with it for this random act of kindness week, is there anything that you would love to see that, you know, maybe everyone does?
I would just love to see like smiling and eye contact and you know, making a comment, complimenting a stranger, those kinds of things. I tried to do that, especially when I'm like grocery shopping.
Right, yeah, that's actually one of my favorite times to do that too, I think.
That's wearing something cool or has an interesting hair color, or, you know, if they have a little dog with them, of course I'm gonna say it's an adorable dog. Hi to anyone's little dog. But yeah, I think just those little things of like brief moments of connection with strangers to make everyone feel like none of us are alone in this world.
For sure.
Even if we feel like we're alone, we're all in this together.
Absolutely. And before I let you go, Rachel, is there anything else you'd like to highlight about Random Acts of Kindness Week, or anything else that you'd like to share with the audience? You know, maybe a final message just to make sure that you guys get on out there and do it.
Yeah. Start with things that are small and easy. You don't have to make grand gestures. It doesn't have to be the biggest deal in the world. Even those little things are going to ripple out to become big things. So start with being kind to yourself when you wake up in the morning. Say some positive things to yourself and let that set your intention and your tone for the day, of being kind to everyone that you encounter. I try to see it as a challenge, especially with people who are not kind to me. I'm like, here's my chance to see if I can win them over. It's a challenge that they're not going to get me to have a mean reaction. They're not going to ruin my mood. You know, try to view it that way as, you know, sort of a game or a challenge for you.
Absolutely. Well, I think those are some great final words to share with everyone. Rachel, thank you so much for sitting down with us as always. And excited to have you on again next week.
Absolutely.
We have started to talk about our topic, and I believe we have it set in stone. If you want to share with the people what we're going to be talking about, I believe it was National...
Sure. It's National Eating Disorder Awareness Week at the end of this month, and so we'll be chatting about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to chat about that, but thank you again, Rachel. It's a pleasure to have you as always. Absolutely. And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you all next Monday for another Mental Health Monday.